Hi everyone, so today I would like to explain about the word of English language teaching from the Practice of English Language Teaching book by Jeremy Harmer. So let's get started. Okay, so who speaks English? This is a three circles view of English in the world, where the inner circle comprised countries such as the USA, the UK, Australia, and etc. There were countries where English was the national language. Calculus suggests there were about 320 until 380 million English speakers of this kind. In the outer circle, Calculus included 150 until 300 million speakers from countries such as India and Singapore, where there was a long history of English use and where local varieties of the language have developed. Finally, Kaklu proposed an expanding circle where English is a dominant foreign language. And the ratio of native speakers to non-native speakers is anywhere between 1 to 2 and 1 to 5. And this gap is widening all the time. In terms of numbers, therefore, something like a quarter of the world's population speaks English as part of their multilingual identity, and native speakers are in proportionately English decreasing minority. Of course, when we are discussing English speakers, we first have to decide what speaking English means. If we were to include everyone who is learning English at beginner levels, we would get a very different figure from the total of people who speak English at upper intermediate level. And then for varieties of English, in the south of England, many people speak Standard Southern English or SSE. The variety of British English which appears in many course books and exams for learners of English. But if you travel north, you will find English that is clearly not Standard Southern English. Similarly, in Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, many people speak other different varieties of the same language. And outside the inner circle version of English, the situation is equally fascinating. First of all, there were recognizable and well-established outer circle varieties such as Indian or Singaporean English. Secondly, where English is becoming a language of inter-country communication in, for example, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and etc. We need to be aware of the enormous number of speakers of English who speak it as a second or additional language, whether they themselves are Argentinian or Japanese, Italian or Mexican. The changes are that these people will not be speaking English with natives, but instead with second language English speakers from other countries. English as lingua franca is another and more widely used name for what is sometimes called English as an international language. ELF is English used as means of communication between people who come from different language backgrounds, not a language variety in the traditional sense of the term. And who learn English? Which variety do they learn? English is studied at school, college, universities, and private language institute. For uh, children and young adults, this is usually because English is on the curriculum or because they need to learn it in order to study at a English medium college or university. And what is General English and ESP? General English is taught all over the world as a school subject with no specific purpose in mind, except that language learning is thought to be good for learners, and English is a language that is worth learning. Syllabuses for general English courses are organized in terms of the grammar and vocabulary to be taught, together with pronunciation elements and language skill words like listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In general English lessons, teachers decided on what language they want to teach and then find content and activities which will help their students learn it. However, many people do have clearly identifiable, identifiable reasons for learning English. Perhaps they want to work as nurses in a hospital in an English speaking country, or perhaps they need to learn the English that is used by pilots or air traffic control employees. And in this case, they will be learning English for a specific purpose. And uh, the aim of language teaching is that the students will learn a language, whereas in content teaching, the content is the most important thing. When content is taught in L2, the target language, the idea is that the language should be learned as well. And then to some extent, this is similar to ESP, except that the term content-based language teaching or CBLT is usually used to describe the study of academic subjects rather than as a way of talking about language study for a particular professional purpose. And CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning, a European variant of CBLT mixes the teaching of content and language so that the students learn both the content and the specific language they need to express the content at the same time. And who teach English? There is still, for some people, a belief that the best teachers of language are native speakers. This is the belief that Adrian Holiday calls native speakerism, and which he described as a pervasive ideology within ELT, characterized by the belief that native speakers, teachers represent a Western culture from which spring the ideals both of the English language and English language teaching methodology. In some situations, too, professional interactions between NEST and non-NEST can be very beneficial. But in the end, the most important thing about good NEST is that they are good at the language and good at teaching. The native speaker teachers, however, have many advantages that their native colleagues do not. In the first place, they have often had the same experience of learning English as their students are now having, and this gives them an instant understanding of what their students are going through. Okay, so that's all about the chapter 1, the word of English language teaching. Thank you and see you.